and I'm going to go more into depth about what me and my sister talked about the first time. So firstly, I'm going to talk about my experience in general, and obviously everybody is different. I just want to say before the video starts two things. One, obviously this is my personal experience, and my transplant was almost 10 years ago now, so what they do now is quite different to how it was back then. Two, there will be a few photos I'm going to show you guys. They're going to be a little bit graphic, like some stitches and scars maybe, just in case you're really squeamish and you don't want to watch, so just warning you. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about what happened on the day of my transplant and tell you guys what I can remember, etc. So it was about 6 o'clock in the morning when we got the call, which is from the hospital, and we rushed up there obviously really quickly to get all the tests done. I was on the list for a deceased donor, so whenever the kidney became available they'd call us. It had been about 3 months since I've been on the list, which obviously is really good, and I was really lucky because some people wait for years for a kidney. So we got to the hospital, they took blood tests so they could test to like double check that the kidney would match with mine, and we actually was sitting in the hospital from about 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night when the people came up to us and started discussing the surgery, and we hadn't actually been told that it was going to go ahead, because there's always that possibility that actually it might not go ahead, it might not match and all of that stuff. So yeah, I went down about 8 o'clock and came out roughly around midnight of the theatre. I don't remember anything, like I have no recollection, but apparently I was screaming, like kicking, thrashing, punched the professor in the face. I have zero memory of coming into recovery at all. My parents told me, and they said, like, they walked down and they were like, oh, it's very quiet, and they heard someone scream and they were like, oh, who's that? And then it was me. So yeah, I have no memory of that. Then I was in intensive care for about 2 days, so because high dependency was shut, because they have the normal ward, high dependency unit and intensive care. Yeah, so the other one was shut because there wasn't enough patients, so I was in intensive care for not long, just a couple of days I think. The nurses, I remember being really nice. I had quite issues with my oxygen, so they had to like put me on a nebulizer because I remember losing my voice and having to write. And I also remember being really thirsty, and they were giving me like sponge, but then after we discussed, actually she's got cystinosis, she has excessive thirst, they were like, you can drink. So sometimes it's just a matter of miscommunication between doctors and nurses, but obviously that's just a little mistake. So yeah, I was in there for about 2 days, and then I came out and they put me on the normal ward. I was still on the oxygen because my oxygen levels were dropping quite badly, and I hadn't started doing any physio or anything yet. I had a few cannulas. I'm just going to show you guys a photo now of me on the ward. This is me in intensive care. After coming back to the ward, it took me about a week to walk again. I had physio on, I think it was pretty much every day. When my friends came to visit me, it was a Sunday, and I think I went down to the theatre the Sunday before was when I first walked, and I remember walking along the wall and holding onto the wall, and then they took me down to the cafe in my wheelchair, and they nearly crushed me into an old lady. Because if you've ever been in a hospital wheelchair in, I don't know if it's the same in different countries, but in England you have to pull them backwards, they're really hard to push forwards. So yeah, we nearly crashed like multiple times. Shout out to Georgie on Twitter who understands my pain. We know the struggles of hospital wheelchairs. But I also had a neckline, which is another thing. I'll show you a picture. It is, this picture is a little bit disgusting, so if you don't like gore, if you don't like stitches, then please look away. But that was that. It was attached with 2 stitches, and I remember getting it taken out. It was horrible because there was a plaster on my neck, and the plaster was all stuck in my hairs. One of the stitches had got twisted and they had to cut it with a razor, so that wasn't very nice. But you see, I've mentioned before in my other videos that I have real issues with my veins. I don't have good veins, and if I keep having to have blood taken out of them, they sort of just don't work. So they were getting blood out from my neckline every day, but when they took that out they had to start actually taking proper blood tests. So my advice for anyone who has bad veins is mainly use your hand veins if you're fine with it. I don't like it, but say you're in hospital, a nurse comes in, asks you where to do it. A lot of time your hands can be better, because my hands have got actually really good veins in, but it just feels uncomfortable to me, so that's my personal thing. So yeah, I was in hospital for a week. Then I walked after the first week. Soon I got my neckline taken out, my catheter taken out. I had issues with swallowing my tablets, and because I was a teenager, one of the women who worked there didn't really believe me that I was genuinely struggling, and she kind of just thought that it was like, oh, you know, she doesn't want to take them, she's a teenager. But actually, I don't really know why. I think it was like, it made me feel really sick, but after a while that went away. But also, another thing, always trust the patient. If a nurse is watching this, if it's a trained nurse, yeah, that was one of the downsides. But the nurses she wasn't actually a nurse, I don't know what she was, but the nurses were so lovely. I had nurses play hangman with me, I had nurses comforting me. I was quite sick a lot of the time just because of all the medication, my body's just way of reacting. Like, they'd rub my back, and they were all just so nice. Like, they'd come in, because it was a renal ward, it's quite quiet sometimes, they'd come in and chat to us, they'd show us pictures of their like babies, and I really, really loved them, like the nurses. There was one particular nurse who I suppose they're not really supposed to make friendships, but I really loved her, and I gave her like a little bracelet and a note. But I think obviously she had to like distance herself away from me a little bit, because they can't make that much attachment. But she was really grateful, and she was so nice to my mum as well, because at the time my sister was very young and she was staying with my uncle at first, and she really struggled. So I just say it is a hard thing to go through for your whole family, especially when you're young. But now, look at me, I'm good. So it's all worth it in the end. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the next 2 weeks. I was in hospital for 3 weeks, only because we lived so far away from the actual hospital. If we lived closer, I could have probably left about after 2 weeks and gone in every day for bloods, but there was no point in me leaving because we lived like 3 hours away from the hospital at the time. But yeah, so I just had to stay in for 3 weeks. I would recommend bringing lots of DVDs, like as much entertainment as you can if you go in a hospital for a transplant. My sister was only in hospital for just over a week, so it is very different, like how it varies, and she was in the adult clinics, so I'd recommend bringing a lot of stuff to do. I was in year 8, so they were quite adamant of me doing work. They took a boy's laptop off him until he did like homework, but the stuff they were giving me wasn't really for my age, so obviously every hospital is different, but this is my personal experience. If you're going in, if any other youth workers or nurses want you to be doing work, then I'd say get your parents to bring you something, because it'll be easier. They also gave me this really fun maths website, and you have to compete against people around the world, and they were testing my blood pressure once, and my blood pressure was just going up and up and up. So don't play games while you're having your blood pressure taken. Yeah, that was the first 3 weeks. I got to go home after 3 weeks, and then I did go downhill a little bit. I got ill at one point after going back to school. Then 2 years later I did go through antibody rejection, but apart from that, I mean, it was a bumpy road, it was pretty rough. A lot of the time I did feel quite ill, but now, 10 years along the line, my creatinine is about 190, roughly around that area, and it's just kind of steady all the time, so it's just slowly going along, which is good. I'm just going to show you guys a few more pictures of me in hospital, and then I'll go through my 3 main tips and tricks and advice for if you're having a transplant or if you're preparing, and then I think I'll end the video. Here's a picture of me. My hair is not okay, but here's a picture of me getting my physio done. I've got a picture of my scar when it had Emma cream on it, because I had a few biopsies at different points in time, so some when I was in hospital, some when I was out of hospital. There's a little picture of my scar just a little while after it was done. And I've got a picture of me when I was feeling a little bit better, holding one of my presents. I look very different. I was very, very skinny. I lost a lot of weight after my transplant. But now I've kind of put that back on, because steroids obviously puff you up as well. So there's me, and you can tell like my legs are crazy, like thin. And the iconic picture of me with a wee pot on my head is there as well. So here's just a little insight into my hospital life. These were all from my mum's Facebook at the time. And now I'm just going to go through a few bits of advice for people who are maybe waiting for a transplant, or parents who are waiting for their children to get transplanted. This is obviously someone who's had a deceased donor, not a live donor, so the process is obviously quite different, but in the long run it's a kidney transplant. My number one tip would be definitely bring things to do, like DVD, laptop, phone, when you're feeling better, because I know adult clinics won't have a play worker. If you're in the children's clinic, there'll probably be a youth worker, a play specialist who can bring you like arts and crafts. They were amazing. I wanted to do that job, but it was very hard to get into. They were just great. They had so many things for me to do all the time. It was amazing. But if you are in the adult clinic, yeah, I'd recommend like a colouring book, anything that you like, reading book, DVDs, literally whatever keeps you entertained. Obviously when you're feeling better and it's just so boring being stuck in hospital a lot of the time, and if you've got no one to talk to, like recently obviously I'm an adult now, so I stay in hospital by myself, and it's quite isolating at times. The nurses, you know, when they come in they'll kind of chat to you and stuff, but yeah, I'd recommend, my favourite thing to watch was Supernatural when I've always been in hospital after my transplant. I just have my DVD player or my laptop and just watch it. Play Sims. Sims was a good one. A bed porter was pushing me along once and he was like, "Are you playing Sims?" And I was like, yeah. So that's one of my favourite things to do when I'm just stuck bored. Also, get your family to bring you food. I cannot stress that enough. Hospital food is disgusting. Hashtag no. It was just half of the meals that I got given. Once the nurses brought it in and brought it straight back out, it looked that disgusting. Some hospital food can be alright, but yeah, ask your family to bring you food, like your favourite food, if you can stomach it. Yes, get them to bring you food. My third thing is, obviously it's a very scary thing. When I woke up to the call, I was sick multiple times because of the nerves. It was just terrifying. Like, I remember going in to the operating theatre and, well, I don't remember it that well, but I started crying and then I was out. Like my dad says, like I just cried and then I fell asleep because they'd already given me an oxygen mask and an injection or something, I think, into my cannula. So I was just scared because, yeah, it is a scary thing, and obviously for your parents it's going to be scary, for your relatives, for your friends it's going to be scary, but you just need to surround yourself with people who understand what you're going through, if they can, obviously. Family members, friends, even your online friends. I have some really good online friends who I can relate to, who they relate to me, and the thing is, just surrounding yourself with that right support network really helps, because there's nothing worse than if you're going through something and you're feeling quite isolated. So obviously if any of you guys right now are maybe prepping for a transplant and you're really scared, you can always leave a comment below, ask me any questions. You can message me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook if you have me, and if you have any more specific questions, leave them below and I'll do another video if you want me to. Also, if you just need someone to talk to, then I am here, and yeah, it's a hard time, but I got through it and my parents were so supportive. We had family members visiting us all the time. My grandparents, my uncle and auntie, my cousins, they all came to visit me. We had my auntie's mum who lives nearby, so when I was actually allowed out of the hospital, we went there for a little while so I could have an actual home cooked meal. We went shopping in the shopping centre nearby, because obviously I was still in hospital but I was allowed to leave for short periods of time. So having that support network there really helped me. I wasn't really online at the time, I wasn't really on Twitter, but if I was to have a transplant now, or when I have it in a few years, I think the support network that I have on there, all my friends, will be really helpful. And that's one of the main things, I think, to have that kind of friendship around you, so you can have someone to confide in. And if you need someone, then yeah, I'm here. So those are my main things about my transplant. I hope I answered it okay. I hope I didn't ramble too much, which I probably did. I hope my tips are alright. If you do have any more specific things that you want to know, of course, just message me or comment, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you for watching, and if you are waiting for a transplant, if you're about to have a transplant, good luck, and I wish you all the healing vibes. Goodbye for now. I will see you later. Bye! I just wanted to give a little shout out to Elsie, who made a little video because she said that she was really enjoying my videos. Definitely keep it up, because honestly, you are so much braver than me doing the growth hormone. When I had to do growth hormone, sometimes I would sit there for like an hour just waiting to press the button. Like, it wasn't even that bad, but the thought in your head like, oh, the needle, yeah. So keep at your videos and keep being really cool. And yeah, I wish you all the good luck as well in the future, because you've got cystinosis, and maybe one day I'd like to make it to a conference in America. Like that's what I would really like to do, but unfortunately there's not many cystinosis conferences in England, but hopefully there'll be more one day. Yeah, keep going, Elsie, keep being cool. Bye. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about kidney transplants, and I'm going to go more into depth of what me and my sister talked about.
Do you want a brownie and a cup of tea?
Yes, please.
What's that stuck in your door?
I don't know. Oh, that's my wire. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to talk about is just the day that I had my transplant. I'm going to talk about like what I remember, how I was feeling, and then I'm going to talk about some kind of like advice for maybe parents with children who are about to have a transplant, or teenagers who are worried about having a transplant, etc. So, seriously. So first of all, we're just going to wait for my neighbour who has been washing his car for the past 5 hours. There we go. Okay, back to it.